Undoubtedly.
Well, South Africans have become accustomed to fraud and corruption in both the public and private sector, especially the reports around it.
But when it comes to outrage on public media, how does the VBS saga actually compare to other scandals?
Well, we have an expert for you on the couch this morning. That's Yavi Madurai from Black Box Theory, just to unpack for us what she's been tracking. Yavi, good morning, and thank you very much for coming in.
Morning.
Early on a Monday morning, but the day is beautiful. Sunny blue sky
sunshine,
after the deluge of the rain.
Unless you've been named in the bank heist report.
Yeah, but
yes.
social media has been very, very busy. Just overriding sense.
Wow.
What are the people saying? What are the conversations
So there's almost three angles to it. The first is the outrage, as you would expect, the obvious one, around the fact that the number of 2 billion rand is being played around with. In terms of the report itself and the understanding of the report, and obviously we heard the story around, who's going to be opening up legal cases against it and all of that. So that's one side of it. The second side of it is, but what about Steinhoff? So there's that angle around, the fact that this is a black bank and therefore there's an issue around it. Who is monitoring the Steinhoff issue? What is happening around that? Why are we only picking on one side of it? From a racism angle, if I can put it that way, but not exactly directly at the matter or at the heart of it. The third angle of it is very much about Jacob Zuma's Nkandla issue and the payment of that loan from a VBS perspective, and what does that say, and the underlying kind of causes. You must remember, social media is that thing where it's dining room table conversation, if I can put it that way. As serious as it is, it's also around being able to look at it from a very human perspective, and what are the things that are sticking in people's minds around, when they think of VBS, what comes to mind first? And those are the three kind of major issues that have played out on social media.
You've just heard all the denials and obviously been aware of all the denials we've seen. Well, since it came out, over the weekend we've had more. How's that sitting with South Africans on social media? What are their thoughts around that?
So the denials are cause for debate. Because the denials are around, but did you understand this? The Floyd Shivambu issue, the interview in terms of, how much money was lent, in inverted commas, by his brother. And the denial or non-responsiveness became a huge topic of conversation, a huge topic of debate in terms of the fact that, are we talking millions? Are we talking hundreds of thousands? Are we talking thousands? Because then that has an impact. And the reason for that conversation from our analytics is that has an impact of how deeply involved Floyd Shivambu would be in understanding where the money came from, whether amount is an issue or not. So that became the main topic of debate around that particular interview and around that particular denial, in inverted commas.
Yeah, we saw Robert Mazonga on ENC's Politburo yesterday morning. We just played a clip a short while ago before you came in. He's one of the big names mentioned there from both Vele Investments and stuff like that. And him as well saying, we're going to go to court, we're going to challenge. There's a legal side to this. But in the social media space, it's human perceptions. It's people just talking about things. I've just been wondering, is there any tracking or any traction rather around about the fact that it's poor people who have suffered here, who deposited money in a bank that's a mutual bank that's supposed to benefit them, and currently that bank has collapsed, and the Reserve Bank had to fork out more than 300 million to help them get some money out. Is there anybody really on social media having a real discussion about, what about the poor people who were putting their faith in this bank?
To answer your question directly, yes and no. And the reason I'm saying yes and no is because the topic of conversation at the moment is very much about the report. However, when I ran the analytics early hours of this morning to be able to do this interview, remember there's previous stories around this, and it speaks exactly to that. So the previous stories around this, it still sits. Remember, internet equals forever. So the information is there, whether we want to do away with it or not. But in this particular case, it was, the Reserve Bank then spent all of this money being able to try and save it for these particular people and the people that have really put their heart and souls and their hard life earnings in. And the appointment of Nedbank from the perspective of being able to now start creating more credibility and being able to do good and turn that whole situation around. If you remember, there was issues about Nedbank being appointed and how and why did the Reserve Bank do that. So there was a whole lot of, that still sits there, and it sits like almost here. because now the report is here. So what's going to happen, I predict, in the next couple of weeks, is that those two stories are going to merge. And it's going to now create traction in terms of what happened when, if you remember, the Reserve Bank came under huge pressure and under huge criticism around the fact that they got involved and they put them under curatorship, if you remember. So all of that is sitting in terms of the analytics that I'm seeing from a social media perspective. And at some point in time, from a media angle, those two, because they're running like this now, the report is here, there was all of the stuff that has happened, it's going to merge. And that sentiment around who is this actually affecting and impacting the most? So there's a report, yes, there's corruption, all of these things, but who is actually at the end of all of this? And that's going to merge at some point. So give it a week, yeah.
Okay, so it's going to get more interesting. And in the meantime, the media will take a beating, continue to take a beating for the story and the focus. Thanks very much, social media expert Yavi Madurai from Black Box Theory, just explaining to us what's been happening, what ordinary South Africans are talking about over the story.